Hello, I'm Crimson Break, the Sea Was Taken, and I'm here today to talk at you for a length of time about why and how narratives within video games succeed and or fail. But we're not just going to discuss how they succeed or fail. Oh no, dear viewer, listener, you. There is no point in ranting or raving about an issue without also offering up a solution. And so, whether it be a character shift, rearranging of the plot, or a complete overhaul, I will also give my point of view on how it could be improved. However, I don't think I'm better or more capable than any of the people who worked tirelessly on the games I'm going to cover. I'm just a guy who's got no deadlines by a publisher, or a budget or mandates to do. I just got hindsight. If you enjoy what you hear, subscribe, hit that bell, share with friends, like the video, or really anything will help me start out with this weird YouTube algorithm thing. With that out of the way, let's make a repair. I began my journey into the Yakuza series with the first in the timeline, Yakuza 0. My friend bought it for me as he loved the series and wanted me to try it, so I did. I don't remember if I was just bored or I didn't really have anything else to play, but I thought, why not? And so just turned it on.
お前に一ついいことを教えといてやる。極道ってのはな、ボクシングとは違え。喧嘩に負けたやつが敗者になるんじゃねえ。最後まで張り続けらんなかったやつが負けるんだよ。ああ？そうだろうが。極道の世界に KO はねえ。俺はな、キリ。指の一本や二本なくそうが、阿波野や渋沢に頭取られようが、そんなことは構えしねえんだ。命ある限り何度でも這い上がってやる。だからよ、てめえみたいな半端もんが一番許せねえんだよ。死ねえボケ！
And it has quickly become one of, if not my favorite game franchises ever. For a multitude of reasons, I love these games. The soundtrack being the best fighting music I've ever heard, the combat being over the top in the most anime of fashions, the characters being complex and interesting, most of the time, and most importantly, the complex narratives. Holy God, do you get a story out of the Yakuza like nowhere else. The Yakuza stories are deep, spanning, full of twists and turns, and by the end you'll be smacking your head in astonishment more times than you can count. Yakuza has captured this sort of narrative masterfully so many times, but this complexity doesn't always untangle as well as the developers might have thought it would. Now, don't get me wrong. The story of Yakuza Kiwami 2 is not bad. It's better than a lot of stuff out there already, even when it's at its weakest. But Yakuza Kiwami 2 hits more of a fly ball than a home run. It hits some good beats with the, Jingguian, and hits a massive stride with the characters of the Dragon of Kansai, Ryuji Goda, and even with small bits such as Kawada. I have nothing bad to say on Goda at all. In fact, my next video will be a character study on him, so look out for that whenever it comes out, which I don't know when. Anyway, we also have Kiwami's lows, which funnily enough, is the exact same thing the Yakuza series prides itself on. Its complexity. The game just has too much. What I'll do, for anyone who hasn't played the game, is give a summary of what happens and how and why it fails at doing said thing. Then at the end we will summarize our thoughts and say what might be a good fix. On a Christmas night, 1980, a police detective named Jiro Kawada entered into the headquarters of a foreign criminal syndicate known as the Jinweon. He witnesses a high-ranking member of the Dojima family, Shintaro Kazuma, murder the boss of the Jinweon Mafia. Upon Kazuma leaving the body, the detective, Kawada, rushes over and hears his dying wish to get his family out of the building. Kawada reaches where the mother and her son are and convinces her to come with him, the same way a lot of people do in this series.
Nice.
Note, this is the root of the plot, the inciting incident. This moment will continuously be referred to and be brought back with different perspectives and insights on what happened, and so you would suspect that this would be the driving force of the plot. Well, kind of. This is where the complication sets in. There are two competing plot lines seemingly vying for a player's interest, and with this it becomes difficult to care for either. The story picks up in 2006, 26 years after the massacre of the Jinweon, and a year after the events of Yakuza Kiwami 1. The Tojo clan is fractured and falling apart. Infighting runs rampant while the Omi Alliance, a rival Yakuza clan, involved with the 10 billion yen scandal of the year before, seems to be very close to a full-on war with the Tojo clan. And to make things worse, the Tojo clan chairman, Tadada, is unable to keep it held together. This leads Tadada to meet the protagonist and resident badass DILF of the Yakuza series, Kiryu Kazuma. Tadada asks for assistance from Kiryu, and of course, Kiryu turns him down, as he is now a simple man making his way through Japan. However, that all changes when an assassination attempt is made on Tadada by members of the Omi Alliance. Kiryu defeats all the assassins, but a stray pulls out a gun and fires. Tadada takes the shot for Kiryu, passing on a blood-covered letter and dying in Kiryu's arms. The letter was for the chairman of the Omi Alliance and was meant to broker a peace between the Omi and the Tojo. Note: wow! What an interesting plot hook that pulls in the protagonist and sets up clear stakes, being the fate of the Tojo clan. And with the letter being Tadada's final wish, we understand why Kiryu feels compelled to fulfill this wish. Honestly, a good start. And here's the issue. What is the start of the story? Is it the detective stumbling upon the massacre of a foreign mafia? Or is it the tension building between the two rival Yakuza clans? Immediately, we have two different narratives playing out, both of which seem to be their own story. With this, it is difficult to have a strong stake in the plot, as a player now doesn't know what to care about. Splitting the narrative like this will force a player to always keep that flashback in the back of their mind and question how it links to the current plot, and means it's more difficult to be invested in either if it keeps switching between the two. This leads to a problem. How connected should the plot lines be? You would assume very, right? If they weave together, then it should be a constant series of twists, turns, and revelations. Well, consider this. If there are two organizations, who are you rooting against? You can't have two central antagonist organizations and have them both be interesting and compelling, right? Well, I would argue Kiwami 2 came close, but did fall short, because of the number of antagonists and their specific goals. The recurring theme to the issue of this game? It's too much. Keep this in mind as we continue. Kiryu Kazuma returns to the Tojo clan and says he'll travel to Osaka and broker a peace with the Omi Alliance. But before doing this, he has to get someone. The heir to the Dojima family and son of the patriarch Nishikiyama killed in Kiwami 1, Daigo Dojima. After tracking him down and seeing what kind of man Daigo has become, Kiryu asks him to come back to the Tojo clan. When he says no, Kiryu solves this with the simplest and most effective solution we as a human race ever invented. violence. After beating his ideals into Daido, Kiryu demands that Daido joins the Tojo clan to help raise it to where it once was, a place of honor and loyalty. Daido will join the Tojo clan once he gets payback against the man who put him in prison. The antagonist we as a player base have come to love and wished had more than what he got. Ryuji Goda. Chapter 2. They travel across the land, searching far and wide. Oh, that was cringe. And make it to Sosenbori, where Kiryu meets an info dealer to put him up in the grain for a drink in the VIP section. 4 reasons. It is here where we meet the Dragon of Kansai himself, Ryuji Goda. The best part of this game. Goda has so many good qualities and so many threads layered into him that he's absolutely the best part about this game. After seeing a phenomenal insight into his character with Kiryu, and learn how he plans to kill Kiryu, we see a bomb go off in the Millennium Tower. The motif of bombs is very heavy in this game, so just keep that in mind. Get used to bombs, they'll be here a lot. We also get further insight into the secondary narrative via Pseudo from Kiwami 1, speaking on the phone with a new character, Chief Torahashi, and is told to find Date. Anyone from Kiwami 1 will remember Pseudo, and he's in this game for like 4 scenes, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 4. We see him here, we see him once more discussing with Kurahashi, we see him once discussing something with Date and Kiryu, and then show up in a helicopter at the end. Much like Kiwami 1. He really didn't need to be here. Chapter 3. Now it's time to meet Kaoru Sayama, aka the Yakuza Huntress, a supporting character and love interest to Kiryu Kazuma, starting and ending with this game. We see Sayama speak with Chief of Police in Osaka, Tsutomu Besho. I'm so sorry to anyone who speaks Japanese. These are probably pronounced horribly. And learn about Kiryu Kazuma being in Kansai. To prevent a war between the East and the West, Besho says it is best to keep Kiryu safe, preventing his demise and preventing war. While Sayama agrees to do this, we can tell she has ulterior motives. Kiryu and Daido meet up and head to the Omi Alliance headquarters, where we meet the cardboard antagonists of the game, Ryu Takashima and Torinosuke Sengoku, the sworn blood brother of Terada and the Rich One respectively. I'll get to them. We also meet the chairman of the Omi Alliance, Jin Goda, which gives us further insight into Ryuji Goda's backstory, learning that his father is the chairman of the Alliance. Sengoku leaves, not enjoying being spoken down to by Daido, while we get exposition from the chairman and Takashima. We learn that the events of Kiwami 1 were supported by Goda alone, and the Omi Alliance had no part in Jinbu's plot. We also learned that Goda has essentially gone rogue and is trying to start the war between the Tojo and the Omi on his own, and that it was most likely he who sent the assassins after Terada. The chairman knows the Omi Alliance has grown too large for his own good, and so wants to make peace with the Tojo clan. With the introduction of Terada's letter, it seems that peace between the Tojo and Omi is inevitable. Until... The Goryu clan, Ryuji Goda's clan, storms in and takes the Omi officers hostage alongside the chairman. Goda has them taken away as he goes to fight Kiryu, but Daido intervenes and has Kiryu go after the chairman while he fights Goda. That doesn't go well.
俺はお前に借りを返さなきゃならねえんだ。雑魚なんぞ覚えてられるか。邪魔やねん。邪魔やねん。邪魔やねん。
Kiryu fights his way through the building in an awesome display of strength until he reaches the lobby. Once he exits, he finds the chairman, shortly followed by a beaten Daigo. As Goda enters the scene, Kiryu has Daigo take the chairman away to find a way back to Kamurocho. Goda declares he needs to kill Kiryu to become the one true dragon. Note, this is Goda's recurring theme and ideology, which fits quite nicely with the themes of legacy and family seen throughout the game. Goda sees himself as stronger than Kiryu and wants to prove it. He thinks he's better than not just Kiryu, but Jin Goda, his father, as well. And so, the dragons do battle.
ここがあんたの墓場や。
Following the fight, Kiryu claims Goda was in no shape to fight him, because Daigo's pretty tough.
You serious?
Sure. And Goda says that their battle won't be done until one of them isn't breathing. Sayama arrives on the scene with the Osaka police force, and so Goda flees. Kiryu allows himself to be arrested by Sayama for assault charges. Chapter 4. Date Kawada, Sudo, and Chief Todahashi discuss the involvement of a foreign terrorist group with the bombing at the Millennium Tower, and that Ryuji Goda gave the order. We also learn that Kazuki, the owner of the Stardust Cabaret Club from Kiwami 1, is really a Korean named Jinwoo Kane who was working with Goda in the terrorist group. Keep that in mind. Kiryu and Kaoru drive for a while until she stops a little bit outside of Sotenbori and tells Kiryu that the arrest was just for show and that they need to protect him. And then she's shot by a sniper rifle from a faraway building. Kiryu drives them into Sotenbori and brings Sayama to her adoptive mother named Mama, where she is left to heal. Sayama is left to rest so the player can go walk around for a while and do side quests and stuff until Mama calls you to get bandages in case Sayama's wound opens up. Kiryu does so, and when he returns, Sayama is awake to immediately tell Kiryu about an informant named Asaki in a shoji parlor, who can tell Kiryu about the bullet. He does so, and learns the bullet is one smuggled in by the Takashima family, is made for incapacitation, not killing. Note. This reveal, like a lot of reveals in Kiwami 2, feels very much like a reveal to be a reveal, to one-up itself, rather than make an impact, because Takashima wants Kiryu to, and I quote, not trust anyone, unquote. And this statement goes nowhere! The only person that betrays him is an info dealer that got Kiryu into the Grand earlier on. Is Takashima referencing himself? Is he warning Kiryu not to trust him? But why? This doesn't mean anything. If you have a theory, please tell me how stupid I am in the comments below, because this seems very dumb and contrived to me. Anyway, the Sengoku family places a bounty on Kiryu, and so the people within the shoji parlor try and kill him. And it goes about as well as you think. we see Sengoku learn they failed within the parlor and says to make it rain at Kamurocho. As Kiryu returns to the Aoi, he hears Sayama arguing with Mama about who her parents are and how she needs Kiryu to get to the Tojo clan. Note: this is convenient because of the trope used. Why is the door open for Kiryu to hear? Your daughter is injured and most likely being hunted by criminals. Why would you keep this open like that? You are a bar. Why would you not close it down if your daughter has been shot inside of your pub? Oh, I know, because it lets the player know how easily Sayama is an orphan and that she's using Kiryu to get to the Tojo. Besho calls Sayama to talk to Kiryu and lets him know that Chairman Goda and Daigo were kidnapped by some foreigners. They decide to leave Sotomori and head back to Kamurocho to find them. Chapter 5. They arrive in Kamurocho where Sayama begins to pass out from her injury, and so she is brought to the Serena by Kiryu. When they get there, Kiryu gets a call from Kashiwagi and is told to report back to Tojo HQ to report what has happened. On his way there, Kiryu gets another call and is told to go to the Amino building at 0100 if he wants to find Daigo. So Kiryu returns to the Tojo clan where we meet yet another cardboard cutout antagonist, Shindo. Everybody hates Shindo. Players and characters in-game. His motives are boring, his impact of the plot isn't really felt by the characters or by the players, and what he does doesn't feel earned. He doesn't really do anything. He has one plot-relevant moment, but his character is pointless other than that. Also, not only does he run the Nishikiyama family, he wears the exact same suit and style of Nishiki. Really a good way to remind us of everything that he is not, which is a good parallel, but just makes his cardboard cutout of a character seem even worse. Kiryu reports about what happened in Osaka and says he was told to get Daigo from the Amino building. Yayoi Dojima, mother of Daigo Dojima and wife of Sohei Dojima, orders Shindo to support Kiryu as the Amino building is within his turf, but Shindo refuses due to Kiryu's actions against the Nishikiyama family last year. Cool motive. I liked that, until Kiryu blatantly asks if that's the only reason, and the player immediately knows that that isn't the only reason. Also because Shindo is a cardboard cutout, who has no real character. After Shindo's defiance on helping Kiryu, he leaves to do it alone. Yayoi offers help via weaponry in a back room, where he finds a very familiar-looking dagger. Kiryu now knows what weapon he needs. He returns to Kamurocho when we get more bonding as Kiryu buys Sayama clothes and beers, and after an incredibly awkward scene of Sayama changing in front of Kiryu, they decide to head off towards Purgatory to get back up to the Tojo clan. And it's time for the best character in this series. Kiryu gets the one man, possibly, stronger than he is. The one man who can save the Tojo if the Nishikiyama family splits off.
さあいよいよ決勝戦そろそろあの男がやってくるはずです現地下闘技場チャンピオン真島五郎半年前このリングに突如現れた島野の強肩は今もなお負けるということを知りません度肝を抜く入場パフォーマンス圧倒的な強さ彼を倒すことができるのは果たして桐生なのでしょうか今リングインです
どうや桐生ちゃんかっこいいやろたくあんただけは読めねえなさあ今度は正々堂々勝負しようやないか
今ゴングです
Kiryu defeats Majima, and he agrees to discuss helping out the Tojo clan. They discuss Terada and what kind of man he was, and it is here Kiryu learns from Majima that Terada wasn't as strong or competent a leader as he thought. In fact, Terada just surrounded himself with yes-men. Remember this. Wait, don't remember this because this comes up at no point at all. It slightly foreshadows something, but doesn't really. Kiryu gets Majuma's word that he'll help the Tojo clan, and so Kiryu heads back to the Sorena, where he and Sayama discuss their parents, or lack thereof. Kiryu says if he has something to do with it, the death of Sayama's parents, then she should shoot him. Ah yes, foreshadowing. Chapter 6. Welcome back to the secondary narrative. Did you forget about it? I did. So, Kawada and Date are at Stardust, scoping out Kazuki, or Kane as he is now known, and Date pulls a 100 IQ move and lies about a police raid coming to Stardust. This then forces Kane to make a break for it, confirming Kawada and Date were right, and Kane is indeed an informant for the foreign mafia. Date and Kawada pursue after him. Kiryu and Sayama need to find the Amino building, and after some filler of fighting gangs and finding the key to the building, they finally get there. Sayama leaves as Kiryu was told to come alone, and so Kiryu enters the building to be assaulted by the resurrected Korean mafia, the Jingweon. Note: it is here where the Jingweon are no longer just a secondary narrative. They become front and center for the rest of the game. This is very weak, because Kiryu and the player has had no interaction with the Jingweon outside of the bomb, but that had no impact on their specific actions, so we don't care about them. Date and Kawada were following the Jingweon via cutscenes, not us, the player, so the meeting of the two threads feels convenient and unearned. Kiryu fights his way through the building and meets for the first time the Man in Black, someone he fights several times but who has absolutely zero character, even though he seems perfect for it. Like he has no dialogue whatsoever, it's just a wasted opportunity. After defeating the Man in Black and the rest of the Jingweon within the building, Kiryu reaches the roof and sees that Date and Kawada are already there. So they made it up here, past the Jingweon that were guarding the building too. And here is where we get the plot twist that Kazuki didn't betray Kiryu. In fact, there is an exact body double working for the Jingweon. Also, Kane was the one who called Kiryu up to the Amino building.
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would. But I legally can't. But I've considered it. Ah! Good God! It's hideous. But beautiful in an ugly way. But mostly hideous. Ugh. Now the main problem area is up here. All of this going on up here is what's causing me the most physical discomfort. It's like a visceral reaction of discontent coming from this area. This area is not good either. I hate this, but I'm mainly worried about this. I win every time, because I'm the best. And so are you.
This does indeed feel like a twist for twist's sake, because very weird plot point to have a body double. Date is trying to figure out which is the real Kazuki, but Kawada doesn't hesitate and draws on one of them. He claims a cop can tell the difference between who they were just talking to and the real one. Date doesn't trust Kawada, and so draws on him. Plot twist, Kawada was correct, and the fake Kazuki, Kane, drew and fired a shot into Kazuki and Kawada. Kane monologues for a bit, and Date aims to shoot him, but doesn't. So Sayama, who followed them up, comes up and shoots Kane dead on the roof. Chapter 7. Kiryu, Kawada, Kazuki, Sayama, and Date escape from the rooftop of the Amino building. While Sayama acts as a distraction, Kiryu and Date take Kawada and the real Kazuki to a small clinic where they can get patched up. Kiryu and Date don't want to stay and risk getting found by the police, so they decide to hide at a small bar behind the Millennium Tower called Bantam, the same bar from Kiwami 1 where Kiryu met Haruka for the first time. Here we meet the most unnerving looking thing I have ever seen. It is here Kiryu learns from Date about Kawada's murder of the so-called illegal aliens 15 years ago, and why Kawada is known as Killer Kawada. We also learn that Kawada is partners with Besho, the police officer that mentors Sayama back in Osaka. With context, probably know why. Following this, we see our first scene of Kawada and Sayama. where Kawada berates Sayama for being unladylike and for leaving her badge at the scene of the murder. This has a lot more depth to it on a second playthrough. What feels snobbish and rude comes off as caring and sad, if not a little old-fashioned and ignorant. When you understand the nuances of why Kawada does what he does and says what he says, you understand why this is actually a heartbreaking interaction between the two. No spoilers. Following this, Kiryu arrives, and two members of the foreign mafia invade the clinic as well to get Kane back, as it is unknown to them that Kane is the dead one, and that this is Kazuki. The exact problem you get when doing a body double. They punch Sayama out of the way, being believers in true gender equality, and so get beaten to near death by Kiryu. And now, finally, our protagonist learns what we guessed all along, that this organization is the Jinweon. Way too long to learn their name. Kiryu returns to Bantam, where they discuss who the Jinweon are, and learn that the bartender was offered money by the Sengoku family to kill Kiryu. The others leave while Kiryu waits to confront him. He arrives with a group of other shop owners, and so Kiryu has to fight the entire neighborhood of store owners within the bar. You can guess how well that went. Kiryu lets them go as he understands their situation of being very in debt and because he's a white knight. After Kiryu leaves Bantam and heads back to Serena, we learn that the legendary info dealer, the Florist of Sai, released footage which made it seem like Date was the one who killed Kane. But his barrel didn't flash. How did they not? Whatever. With this, Date has become a wanted man. Now remembering the Florist exists, Kiryu leaves to ask him where Daido and the chairman are, and why he released the footage, and since the Florist is on a government payroll now, he can be found within the Millennium Tower. Kiryu goes there, and we learn the Florist didn't actually release the footage, and that they have a rat to deal with. The Florist tries to give Kiryu the location of Daido, but the system gets shut down by Omi-men inside the power room, and a hacker stopping them from accessing the cameras. Kiryu and Sayama ethically murder everyone within the power room, and Sayama outhacks the hacker. An odd choice to just suddenly add that she's a skilled IT person, but it works for this one particular scene, I guess. Also about a revelation on her family later on, but that also could have been introduced in a multitude of different ways. Once the unhacking commences, the Florist is able to find the location of Daido, but not the chairman. Daido is within the Shangri-La in the clutches of the Goryu clan. Kiryu and Sayama make their way through the rubble of the Shangri-La, left there by Majima's raid last year, and free Daido after beating up everyone in the building. Yep, that's it, Daido's back. Chapter 9. Kiryu, Sayama, and Daido retreat back to the Serena, where Kashiwagi appears and tells them all about the history between the Jinweon and the Dojima family. The Dojima family, led by Sohei Dojima, discuss the appropriate reaction against the Jinweon Mafia within Japan. We learn Kazuma, Shimano, and Dojima were the main contributors, and that while Kazuma wanted to show mercy to the Jinweon, Dojima orders Kazuma and Shimano to wipe out every one of them out, but the police erase the records of it happening. Note. Okay, this is one of the wasted parts of the plot, I think, for both a character and a theme. The sole purpose of the Jinweon in this plot is revenge. That is their central theme, and they have waited 26 years to destroy the Tojo. But why not also focus on killing the family of the man who ordered your execution? Say, Dojima? I think this should have been a much stronger role for Daido. It made him feel truly involved in the plot, rather than being kidnapped for most of it, kind of pointless for a bit, and then to suddenly take up the Tojo clan. If they had Dojima as a target for their revenge, it would continue that theme, give purpose to Daido being involved, and could help give him a proper character arc. His father made mistakes. He left the Tojo and doesn't want to be involved. He is forced back in and learns to take responsibility for the actions of his family. It's simple, but would work really well. More than that, Kiryu. He's the practically adopted son of Kazuma, so why wouldn't he also be targeted by the Jingueon? They're only targeting the Tojo clan itself. Why not get more personal and get more interactions and stakes by the characters? Kiryu is told of Teruto's funeral, and so he and Daido head back to the Tojo clan to pay their respects. Here is where they alert Lady Dojima that the Goryeo clan is working with the Jingueon. We also see Shindo in the background, looking all conniving. As they are discussing this, cars of the Goryeo clan pull up and try to start a fight with the Tojo. Kiryu defeats them all while we see another car drive up to the Tojo headquarters. Ryushi Goda arrives and says he didn't tell his men to do this, that they just acted on their own. He didn't want this to happen as he views funerals as sacred, and that Teruto was a good man to him as a child. Yayoi berates Ryuji for betraying his father. And here we get a very key detail. Jin Goda is not Ryuji Goda's real father. With this little nugget of information, he gives the Tojo clan a large sum of money in recompense and 3 days to mourn the dead, and warns them that the Sengoku family won't give them the same courtesy. Immediately after the funeral, we see helicopters beginning to fly over Kamurocho, with men marching through the streets. However, Goro Majima, only Goro Majima, honors his word by destroying all of them. That's it. That's the Sengoku family invasion. It's over in a cutscene to one guy, and while I agree that Goro Majima is incredibly strong, kind of a lame set piece. We didn't even get to see him take them all down in an epic display of strength. To make up for this pitiful invasion set piece, Majima alerts Kiryu that Shindo is betraying them and works with the Goryeo clan, so Kiryu rushes to the Tojo. The man dressed exactly like Nishiki and refused to aid Kiryu is betraying them? Who would have guessed it? Shindo orders the murder of nearly all the Tojo officers, and has Kashiwagi, Daigo, and Yayoi held hostage. He says he was in love with Yayoi and will lead the Tojo clan for the Omi. Note, this is the most boring betrayal ever because it's telegraphed with a large red sign saying, "I will betray you." No one was surprised by this, and so it comes off as weak. His motivations are even worse. He wants money and lusts after Yayoi. That's it. Better character would be no character at this point. Kiryu fights Shindo, whose theme is way too good for him, by the way.
時代は変わるんですよ
And murders him. Then Shindo comes back. And Daido murders him.
てめえの欲で組をめちゃくちゃにしやがってぶっ殺してやる
He doesn't come back after this, now he's gone. He survived a sword slash down his chest, but not a bullet to his chest. Yakuza logic. Chapter 10. We meet Date again, who is looking through a police file on the Dojima massacre of the Jingueon, and learns from Kawada that he and Besha were the ones on the original Jingueon case. Kawada says he owes the Jingueon and throws Date his badge, going rogue after them. Date then meets with Kiryu and Sayama, telling them about Besho and Kawada being the ones on the case, and Kiryu tells Date that if Kawada left, then he should too, and that Kiryu is going after Ryuji and Kansai to find the chairman. We also get a follow-up on the florist's son, but that did nothing of any importance and was kind of boring, so there's no need to cover it here. Sayama and Kiryu discuss heading to Kansai, where Sayama says she feels betrayed and needs to talk to Besho. Kiryu tells her, rightfully so, do what she wants, but he needs to find the chairman to prevent this war. So Sayama aims her gun at him and says Kiryu has to do what she says and that the Jinweon are their priority. Okay. So this may be one of those reasons that people do not like Sayama. Between a small faction of a foreign mafia and a full-on clan war, one is much larger than the other. By threatening Kiryu to come with her to find out more about the Jinweon because she feels betrayed, feels petty and pathetic given that there is a war about to happen. It makes her character feel selfish by doing this. Sayama and Kiryu return to Osaka PD and Sayama asks Besho about the case now. Of course, he doesn't know anything except of what happened back then. But he does have a name. A Jinweon survivor named Murai. Besho says Kiryu isn't in custody anymore. The case is done because of how dangerous the Jinweon are. Sayama feels annoyed and runs off. She protects some people on a bridge from some thugs. And the thugs act all pervy, which is a weird Japanese stereotype in media. Am I the only one that notices that? That seems to be more common than I think it should. Anyway, she and Kiryu beat up everyone on the bridge and then go on their montage dates. Yeah, it was fine. They decide to meet up the next day to meet the survivor, and so Kiryu goes for a walk. And then he stumbles upon the man who inked Goda's tattoo. I really hate this. The Yakuza series has an emphasis on the tattoo that a Yakuza has. Nishikiyama and his koi, Kiryu and his dragon, Majima and his Hanya mask. Tattoos symbolize the wearer and give a large insight into their character, and we already know a lot about Ryuji before this point. We know he most likely has a dragon due to his nickname, he's strong and brutish but has honor behind his actions, and that he's chasing after his own legacy and glory to surpass his mentor Jin Goda. This is all subtle character nuances, and the reveal of the tattoo being an exact opposite in color to Kiryu should be when he reveals it himself in the final battle, not by just stumbling upon the maker on a random bridge. While I appreciate the discussion about power being power and has no good or evil to it, but the actions made, this would have worked much better if it stayed a subtle foil to Kiryu, and that it is seen through their comparison and contrast, rather than being told about it by some old guy who is then never seen again in the game. Unless it's a sub-story I missed. Chapter 11. Kiryu and Simon meet up and discuss the possibility that Kyoryu may be a Jinweon survivor before heading over to speak with Murai. Note: everyone assumes that this is the case given that we see a child within the beginning cutscene. While I really hated the true reveal on my first run, I can't help but appreciate it being so simple yet such a cunning twist. After trying to find a golden shoji piece from Santa Claus to get entrance to the underground shoji ring, only in Yakuza, Sayama and Kiryu find and speak with Murai. It's here where they get a poignant shoji metaphor and learn more about the massacre. They learn that the Jinweon members came from the mainland, and to save himself, Murai sold out the other survivors. We learn that there were two other survivors besides the mother and child, 16-year-olds, named Daejin Kim and Yeonmin Ji. Soo-yeon Jun and her child were saved that night by Kawada, and Murai sold out the mother and her child to the Jinweon to survive. That Sayama is the daughter of Soo-yeon Jun. We also learn that Kiryu was there that night. The Jinweon burst into the parlor as they discuss this, and Kiryu and Sayama have to fight them off. One of them throws a dagger into Murai's stomach. Kiryu tries to question the members, but they ingest a powder which kills them instantly, preventing interrogation by them. Murai repents on his actions and commits ritualistic suicide. Chapter 12. Simon the player learns about Kiryu's involvement with the massacre. Kiryu followed Kazuma into the Jinweon headquarters and saw the boss aiming a gun at him. Sadly, Kiryu didn't hear Kazuma letting the boss go, so he acted rash and ran into the room to protect Kazuma. The boss was startled and thought Kazuma was pulling a trick, and so he drew on Kiryu. Kazuma shot the boss dead to protect Kiryu. Note: gotta say, I do love learning about the different perspectives of that night. Seeing why Kazuma was called a lying dog now makes sense with this further context. See, Yakuza is leagues ahead of other narratives, even at its worst. Kiryu says she can shoot him to make it right, but Sayama actually calls him out and says not everything's so black and white. It seems here that Sayama doesn't blame him, and rather just needs time to process rather than being overly aggressive towards Kiryu. Which makes the next scene weird. We get a rainy night, of course, and Kiryu smokes while listening to sad rock music like he just went through a breakup. A beer can is dropped by a homeless man, and when Kiryu goes to return it, he is stabbed. We all know and hate it, ladies and gentlemen. Note: Kiryu moping feels unwarranted. Sayama had a fair reason to go off, and Kiryu got involved with a criminal syndicate trying to protect his father figure. Kiryu might have got someone killed, but it's not guaranteed Shimano wouldn't have killed him anyway. After he pulls out the knife, note for everyone, if you're impaled, don't pull out the object, because it would cause worse damage and kill you faster. Kiryu flees to the AoE to recover. He arrives and sees Mama in conversation with Kawada, but passes out shortly after. Foreshadowing. We see Sengoku, Takashima, and Goda all in a room discussing the race for the Omi throne, presenting the idea that Takashima is on the same side as Ryuji and Sengoku, kind of contrasting what we saw originally about him shooting Sayama. We see Sengoku berate Goda for having the Jinwei running about, and see that Sengoku kidnapped Haruka from the Sunflower Orphanage. Forget about Haruka? Don't worry, so did I. Kiryu then awakes from his injury and is given a note by Mama found in his jacket that was slipped in when he was stabbed. Kiryu learns about Haruka being taken by Sengoku and goes to get her back. Why tell him that you have his girl when you could just kill him? Maybe you didn't expect him to die, but then why not just hand him the note? And if you were planning on killing him, why give him the note at all? In fact, why take a hostage then? Kiryu goes to find the location of the Sengoku family, and so we get some filler with the golf assassin, Kurosawa from the beginning, and Iseki, the shoji parlor informant. We learn that Sengoku is held up in Osaka Castle. Then we get this. Yakuza is known for ridiculous moments grounded in realism. The key word being realism. You want an ancient Japanese set piece with ninjas and samurai? Awesome! Love it! Amazing set piece idea. But have just a castle, and not a castle that rises out of the ground like some kind of divine machine. It's goofy. This isn't Assassin's Creed, where some random temple is out in the jungle. I played Assassin's Creed 4 recently, so that's the only thing that can come to my mind right now. Kiryu fights his way through the castle, over pit traps and samurai and shinobi and a guy with a fan. Then he just straight up murders people. He fires at them with a Gatling gun. There's not much else to say. They're dead. He then gets to the top and meets Sengoku, who is holding onto Haruka as a hostage. He releases 2 tigers as a way to kill Kiryu. Then Kiryu I still go back and forth whether this is goofy or stupid or badass or all three. Probably all three. Sengoku, scared out of his mind, runs off to his office where Ryuji Goda is waiting for him. How did Goda get there? Was he always there, or did he jump in by the window? Goda stabs Sengoku seemingly because he was annoying him, and throws him out the window. Goda returns Haruka back to Kiryu because Goda is awesome. Goda wants to beat Kiryu his own way, and he thinks kidnapping is shameful. Goda reaffirms he's attacking in 2 days with the entire Goryu clan. Don't get excited for this. As Goda exits, Kiryu's wound opens up, and so he falls to his knees, and Deus Ex Sayama. How did Sayama get here? Wouldn't she have seen Goda on his way out? Sayama helps Kiryu up and proceeds to lead him out of the castle where, how did Kawada get there? How is everyone just showing up in this random room? Chapter 13. We start immediately with Sayama getting a note from Mama that her father is still alive. I wonder who it is. She goes to search for Mama while Kiryu goes exploring with Haruka since she's just been kidnapped. Again. We get an overly long plot point out an actress and Haruka becoming one before Kiryu gets a phone call from Kurahashi. On the phone, Kiryu was told Date was taken hostage, and we get the reveal that Kurahashi is actually one of the Jinwei-on survivors, Yeonmin-ji. Note, this was both obvious and pointless. While Kurahashi has been in the game the entire time, he's had no influence on, or scenes with, Kiryu or Sayama. Only Date and Koda at the very beginning. This reveal leads to exposition and another narrative thread that removes all stakes from the Omi War, completely and utterly. This is, and will always be, a mistake. Also, this wasn't a reveal for anyone, because in his first scene, he was wearing the prominent Jinwei-on ring. God, this game annoys the hell out of me sometimes. Kiryu is told to arrive at the Millennium Tower by dawn with Sayama, or the building will be blown to smithereens. We then see Kawada on the phone with Basho saying they were right, most likely about Kurahashi, and that Kawada is on his way to Kamurocho as they speak. Basho says he will try to keep the Omi in check for as long as he can. We see Kiryu sleeping in the car as Sayama and Haruka discuss him and how Kiryu acts more comfortable around them than normal people. This is actually kind of sweet, and I do really like the relationship between Haruka and Kiryu. While she calls him Uncle Kaz, we all know Kiryu is the best father. And the Jinwei-on are trying to intercept their arrival, when he was told to go there. Kiryu defeats multiple truckloads of Jinwei-on members, and the Man in Black again. Who gets run over by a truck? And rushes to Kamurocho, but of course, they stop by Sardana to drop off Haruka. Kiryu and Sayama reach the Millennium Tower and meet with Kurahashi. Might I add, for the first time in the game! And go to attack, but are told not to shoot by Date as there is, drumroll please,
That's your drum roll?
When a tempo isn't specified, any reasonable person would default to lento.
Well, it's terrible and you ruined a fun thing.
another bomb! Kurahashi asks Sayama to join with him to avenge the Jinwei-on from 26 years ago. Like that would ever happen? Until Kawada appears with Mama behind them. Weren't they ahead of them by a long way? How are they behind Kiryu and Sayama timeline-wise? Whatever. No. Here we get the most inane, idiotic, and unforgivable twist in the game. Kawada says he has always had Kurahashi pegged for a Jinwei-on survivor ever since he joined the Force. Why not tell Date and Kiryu this? Why not try it out into the police before this? Why not all forms of idiocy would you not tell the people you are working with, like Pseudo, who trust Date and know he didn't commit a murder, that a high-ranking police officer is a Jinwei-on survivor, and maybe he'll take the police after you or change the narrative to make you the villain? He just shouldn't have known. It would have had no issue with that. Kawada wastes no time and shoots the detonator out of Kurahashi's hand, nullifying the bomb and the threat they pose. Kawada goes to kill Kurahashi, but Kurahashi tells the others that Kawada is Sayama's father. Dun, dun, dun. It's kind of obvious, but also gives better context between his actions towards Sayama earlier. This is a really good parallel between the characters, as Kawada doesn't want her to follow the same path and be consumed by hunting these people down like he was. When he said she should act ladylike, he's doing it because he wasn't able to see her grow up as a child. Rather, he just sees himself in her. Kurahashi pulls a second gun while Kawada is distracted and shoots him several times. Kiryu rushes in, taking out all the Jinwei-on members in the room, and Kurahashi goes to shoot Sayama. Kawada jumps in the way, taking yet another bullet, but Kawada takes Sayama's gun and shoots Kurahashi dead. Kawada explains himself in his last moments that he felt in love with Suyeon Jun, and they had a family. The Suyeon was murdered by the Jinwei-on, and that she wanted her children to be erased from the Jinwei-on legacy. Kawada left Sayama to keep her safe and to kill every last Jinwei-on member he could to erase Kaoru's existence from them. Sayama asks about her brother, the son of the Jinwei-on boss, but Kawada says it's not his place to say, and passes on from his wounds. That was kind of important information for them. You can't Chapter 14. The group returns to Kamurocho Hills where Sayama and Mama grieve over Kawada. The florist returns to Purgatory, and he, Kiryu, and Date discuss the other child of Suyeon. Date says they might learn something from a compact floppy disk he found on Kurahashi's corpse, because Kurahashi kept a disk of the children of the boss on his person. For some reason. They think they can get Sayama to crack the disk's information. We see the Goryu clan heading towards Kamurocho, and hear Goda discuss how he's doing something not even the great Jin Goda could do. He says that Kamurocho will be the staging ground for him taking down every Yakuza clan across the nation. And this will mean nothing in like 2 seconds. Takashima returns again and talks to the mysterious figure over the phone, saying that everything is going according to plan. Obviously, we now know Takashima is planning around the Goryu and the Jinwei-on. We also learn that he has an ace in the hole prepared. Back with Kiryu, we learn Sayama is unable to hack the disk from Kamurocho and that she needs to return to Osaka HQ to figure out what's on the disk. Before she heads off, though, Kiryu and her get a drink at the Serena, where she admits he was right and that finding out the truth only made her hurt. Sayama tries to leave, but Kiryu stops her and they finally kiss. Hooray! Sayama leaves for Osaka, so Kiryu goes to meet with the newly awakened Kazuki, who says he's been locked up for 6 months and that the Jinwei-on had a backup plan, that there were 31 bombs around Kamurocho, one for each of the members of the massacre back in 1980. Note: no matter what the Goryu do now, they are no longer a threat. Our stakes with them are gone. All the stakes have been shifted to the bomb plot, all the build-up to the war, the tension and hype built for it, and Ryuji is now lost as we solely focus on the Jinwei-on and saving of the city. This feels really last minute and hurts the overall narrative, especially with how it's resolved. And another thing, how does Kazuki know? Think about it, he was captured by a Korean mafia who are planning their revenge. Does Kazuki speak Korean? Did the Jinwei-on speak in Japanese in front of him? And where was Kazuki held for so long? And why would they openly talk about bombs in front of a prisoner? We have to ask questions like these to make the story smooth, to not leave any plot holes that we can pick up on, like we are doing. So, Kiryu returns to the Tojo clan to alert them about the bombs, and that Date has the police mobilized to find them. He says that the Tojo clan's job now is to hold back the Goryu clan. Daido finally steps up and takes the lead of the Tojo, to hold off the Omi who are coming in with dozens of cars full of men and trucks filled with weapons. To rally the troops, Daido gives a impassioned speech about defending the city. However, as we get the Tojo clan ready for war against the Omi, we drop that and learn the police won't help with the bombs. So much for having the force mobilized. And so, the Tojo clan will hunt down the bombs while Kiryu will fend off the Goryu. Note: the stakes have changed immediately after setting up the Omi war with the Tojo. Now the Goryu, the threat needed to be fended off in a game war, will only fight Kiryu. No large battle, just 3 pit stops, then done. The constant back and forth between caring about the Jinweon or the Goryu is giving me whiplash. Majima returns to help the Tojo locate the bombs as he kept the Flores surveillance system underneath his office. It gets stuck, so he bashes it until it opens. I guess you could say he uses his head. Kiryu fights the Goryu at Bantam, the clinic, and at Stardust. He finds Goto waiting at Stardust for him and sics his men on Kiryu. Kiryu handily beats them, as he does with all opponents, but then gets super tired and falls to the ground. Cutscene injury. Goto goes to swipe at Kiryu with his sword, but he stops right before his Kiryu face, sparing him until he's healed up, mirroring Kiryu and Goto's first fight at the Omi HQ. Goto tells Kiryu to meet him at the highest point in Kamurocho when he's finished dealing with the Jinweon bombs so they can end it. So now, Goto doesn't care about taking Kamurocho. He just wants to beat Kiryu, even though he said he wants to take over all the Yakuza. And he doesn't react that the entire Goryu clan just fell. Chapter 15. Kiryu checks on the beaten Yuya. Yuya is the bouncer of Stardust from one who was getting beaten by the Goryu, to make sure he's okay, when Daigo bursts in to say that the 30 of the 31 bombs are disposed of, with Majima dealing with the last one.
親父、これでこの配線を解読できるんですか？アホか！俺がこないなごちゃごちゃしたもん分かるはずないやろが。せやけどやらにゃしゃあないからこうやって勘を働かしとるんやないか。勘？勘なんすか？なんやお前、俺のこと信用しとらんのか？いや、そんなことはないっす。それならはよやれんけい。はい。あ、親父、最後の2本です。あ？面倒や。どちらにしようかな、神様の言うとおり。決まった。赤や。親父、生きるか死ぬかの選択なんです。もうちょっと真面目にやりましょうよ。うっさいボケ、もう赤に決まったんや。それ貸せや。
Majima defuses it, and just like that, all the bombs and Goryu are gone. The entire Goryu clan invasion was 3 locations of a handful of people, even though we were shown cars and cars of Goryu members, and we were hinted at that they had weaponry in trucks. But none of that was there. Also, the bombs were done away with incredible ease. They're gone. You didn't deal with any of them. They were dealt with off-screen. And that should have been the climax, and a lot bigger. But no, we still got more. We see Sayama and Osaka uncrack the disc and learn the identity of her half-brother. However, we don't learn who it is yet, only that she knows. After speaking with Majima about the bombs and telling Dante he's going after the Yuji, Kiryu explores Kamurocho with Haruka, and can I just say how fast I got bored of this. It's out of place and not needed. After doing that for too long, Kiryu and Haruka return to Serena, where they see Sudo again, who now has an active role in the story. On the second to last chapter, Sudo tells us he cracked a copy of the disc Date gave him, and now we learn, kind of anticlimactically, that the child Suyeon had before Sayama was Ryuji Goda. A big twist if you know anything about hair colors and how drastic of a change two black-haired parents to a straight blonde is. Sayama returns to Sorena as well, and they don't tell her. I guess you could say they view it as they're protecting her from the truth, but honestly, it seems unnecessary and a betrayal of her trust. Sayama pulls a pro-gamer move and tricks Kiryu and Date to go to Archive Room 13 in police headquarters, saying Besho is there wanting to tell them about the strange actings of the Takashima family, who haven't acted yet. Kiryu and Date get there, but Besho isn't. Instead, there's a computer with a recording from Sayama. She knows that Ryuji is her brother and that Kawada saved him from the fire with Suyeon, and her plan is to tell him this and try to surrender and stop the war, even though the war is over as his clan has all been defeated by Kiryu. Sayama also admits to caring for Kiryu and for the time they spent together. Sayama wants after Goda, and so Kiryu goes after both of them. Chapter 16. Kiryu leaves Haruka with Date and Sorena, and begins to head to Kamurocho Hills. When he leaves Sorena, he is met by the entire Jingweon Mafia waiting to stop him. Kiryu does as Kiryu does, and fights through all of them. Why are they all here now? Shouldn't they have been guarding the bombs? Whatever. Kiryu reaches the hills and continues to fight through the Jingweon waiting there, until he reaches the elevator, which he takes up towards the top where... You again? Kiryu faces the man in black one final time before he reaches the top and goes to face Ryuji. We see Kaoru confronting Goda about where the chairman is. Goda notions to the other side of the roof, and Kiryu goes to check. The chairman is unharmed but bound, so Kiryu unties him. Sayama tells Goda that she's there to arrest him, to turn herself in if that's what it takes, says she doesn't want to lose any more family. Ryuji believes she's crazy, until she asks him about the burning building. She tells him that he is a Jingweon survivor, but Goda doesn't care about that. He has been so focused on his goal that he doesn't care what his bloodline is. He is the true dragon. It doesn't matter where he comes from. Or so he says to himself. Sayama tells him that his mother survived that night and took a new name. She tells him that she is his sister, and begs him to stop the fighting. Goda's only reaction is confusion, that he is a little sister. The chairman speaks up and confirms what Sayama has said. The Suyeon came to Kansai and met Jin Goda at a small bar within Sotenbori. That the mafia was hunting her and her child down. Jin says that he tried to help her the best he could until a police officer in Kawada transferred down to Kansai looking for her, and that she left Ryuji with Jin Goda. Ryuji is enraged after thinking his mother abandoned him, but we learn that she only did so because Jin requested her to. Jin tries to comfort Ryuji that he always saw him as a son, but Goda rejects it, saying it doesn't matter now, that he's been alone all his life and only cared for surpassing the great Jin Goda, that he even teamed up with the Jin Weon to make the war happen. We now see that Jin wasn't Ryuji's father, but his idol, not someone to learn from, but someone to surpass. Ryuji doesn't care about revenge or their creed, he worked with the Jin Weon because their goals aligned. Goda approaches Kiryu to decide who the true dragon is, and Kiryu admits he's reminded of an old friend by Ryuji. That Goda acts upon his instincts, and that they drive his purpose. Goda is just like all the best characters in this series. Like Majima and Nishikiyama, Mine and Kuze. They have an undying loyalty to the cause they believe in. Goda and Kiryu enter the central lift and close the cage.
Kaoru, すまない。よっしゃ！なら一丁派手に極道の花探せようやないか！覚悟はできとるやろね。
They battle hard, but the Dragon of Dojima defeats the Dragon of Kansai. Chairman Goda speaks on how he was too scared of losing Ryuji to tell him the truth, as it's better this way, now that he knows how Ryuji truly felt. He tells Sayama that he wants to end things the right way, and that he will turn himself in alongside Ryuji. This is where it probably should have ended, but they had one more twist they wanted to pull.
お見事や。合田会長、桐生さん。ここまでは見事に私の筋書き通りに動いてくれました。まさか、その声は寺田。
Terada was the last Jin Weon survivor named Daijin Kim. The war between the Yomi and the Tojo was his plan. Everything that's unfolded was thanks to him. He faked his death to spur Kiryu into action. He lied about the oath to get Goda to start the war, as Ryuji never would have agreed to an alliance. Even that Goda would be defeated by Kiryu on Kamurocho Hills. Terada now plans to kill Kiryu, set off the final explosive for Kurohashi on top of the hills, and let the Tojo clan crumble as revenge for the massacre 26 years ago. An explosive powerful enough to, and I quote, drown Kamurocho in flames, unquote. And then we get another twist, which, if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, makes no sense. Ahem. Kiryu knew Terada was Jin Guion. And you only reveal this now? And you never thought to piece it together? And you made him chairman of the Tojo still? Honestly, the better twist at this point would be Kiryu knew Terada's plan and planned around his plan. Terada tries to kill Kiryu, but doesn't realize Kiryu's the anime protagonist, so the rest of the Jin Weon are defeated. And then, in yet another twist, Takashima arrives and shoots Kiryu. I actually kind of like that Takashima works with Terunoda, given that they were sworn brothers as revealed in the beginning. However, yet another, it was me all along, is just reductive at this point and feels really unnecessary. He doesn't even fit into the theme of revenge, he's just there. We then learn the plan was actually Takashima's, not Terunoda's, that Takashima wants to rule the Yomi Alliance. Then he betrays Terunoda. We then get a nice close-up shot of a piece of machinery which will only be important after the credits, and also makes no sense. Then, Takashima murders Chairman Goda. He then exposits that he will become chairman of the Yomi, absorb the Tojo clan, rule over all Yakuza nationwide, then use the Jinweon to spread to the mainland. You know, the same Jinweon whom he just murdered the Japanese faction's leader of. Terunoda is still alive at this point, so he triggers the bomb and tells Kiryu to trust him. And now, I will tell you why this is stupid. Terunoda tried to murder Kiryu. Terunoda knew Takashima would betray him, and so he activated the bomb. The bomb, which has, spoiler, no arming device. The bomb can't explode, so why does he arm it? To pressure Takashima? And why tell Kiryu to trust you? This doesn't change his situation and you were trying to kill him. You still want the Tojo clan to crumble. The fact the bomb is no arming device truly makes no sense. The bomb has no purpose but to raise the stakes even higher for an arbitrary reason. Sayama runs at Takashima and becomes a hostage. Takashima shoots Kiryu once again, but guess who's back? Goda literally walks at Takashima and fires round after round after round into him. However, Goda is also shot in the process in a beautiful piece of symmetry, being shot exactly adjacent to Kiryu. Then, he sums up every badass within the Yakuza series in one line. A real man ought to be a little stupid. Goda then kills off Takashima. Goda and Kiryu, both injured and unable to get away from the bomb in time, decide to finish it here. They put Sayama in the cargo elevator and send it down towards the bottom as she pleads for them not to fight. The final showdown between the Dragon of Dojima and the Dragon of Kansai begins. The battle rages on until Kiryu lands the final blow, proving once and for all who the dragon really is. As the fight ends, Sayama returns as she ran back up the stairs, unable to leave Ryuji and Kiryu behind. She rushes over to Ryuji and holds him as he bleeds out from his wounds. In his final moments he comforts her, reminiscing about their mother and how similar Sayama is to her. Goda asks Sayama to smile for him. She does, and he smiles back. He is reminded of his mother just before he passes on. Until zombies invade Kamurocho and he comes back with a machine gun arm. It's at this point where Haruka, Date, and Sudo arrive by helicopter to get Kiryu and Sayama out of there. It's almost like they were given an out for the bomb going off. But no, Kiryu, unable to make it due to his injuries, and Sayama choosing to stay with him, wait on the platform for the bomb to go off. Then they make out for a good while until... And they survive. Stay till the end of the credits and see them at the gravesite again. That's it. Bomb had no stakes. It was pointless. So, that went much longer than I was thinking it would, but now you know the plot and my key issues with it. All narratives are threads just waving in the wind, and it takes writers to use those strings and pull them together into a concise narrative. There may be knots along the way, but that's the point of redrafts, to get the narrative as tight and streamlined as possible. Yakuza Kiwami 2 didn't do that very well. There are some incredibly high points, such as Ryuji Goda and Majima. The Jingweon and the Omi War are both really good ideas, but I don't think they mesh as well towards the end as I think the developers thought it would. It's Yakuza, so it's guaranteed to be good, but there always has to be a worst of the best. So, we've seen the problems. Now what about a solution? Firstly, the core issues. Stakes changing on what we need to care about, overcomplication towards the end, shallow cutouts of some characters, and not enough time with the good characters. So how do we fix this? Thank you for asking, imaginary audience I'm speaking to. This is what we do. I view the most important and valuable part of the story as the characters. The characters are the main threads of every narrative. Their actions and motivations are what create the compelling plot points, and so it doesn't matter what set pieces or plot twists are used, because the characters and their interactions with the world are what make it interesting. This is why my changes to the plot are changes to the characters. We will go through the main characters and see what needs to be tweaked or overhauled to fit better with the themes and overall plot. Now, all stories have central themes, and the best stories are those themes put physically into action. Think of the fight over the ring within Lord of the Rings. It's technically a fight for the fate of Middle-earth between two warring factions, but look just a little deeper and you see that it's actually a war of good versus evil, and the scars that brings, as seen with Frodo's suffering and eventual need to leave the Shire after the ring is destroyed. This story, like Lord of the Rings, will revolve around the Tojo versus Omi on the surface, but will really be about Goda's ambition versus Kiryu's loyalty. By the end, both will have an ideological shift. Kiryu will realize that the Tojo needs to move on from their stagnant glory days, while Goda realizes that he lost said glory days of the Omi through his actions. We will get this by the Jingweon forcing the changes in ideology physically. That should be the core of the narrative and the central focus. The stakes should be set on saving the Tojo clan's soul, not just the clan itself. This is what we are protecting, so that should be the central premise for every decision made by Kiryu. The central conflict should be the Omi, Ryuji Goda specifically, trying to start a war with the Tojo, and the central ideals should be kept between Kiryu and Goda. Keep the premise tight and concise between these two characters. The theme throughout the game is revenge. With it being so crucial to the plot, we need to show the consequences of revenge versus forgiveness throughout the story to make the decisions of the factions and the characters have more impact. The character dynamic between Ryuji and Kiryu and how they foil each other is the best part of the game, and so should be centerfold on these themes, along with loyalty and ambition. Make them represent their ideology, so when it changes, it has more believability and impact. So this is what we change for the characters. Firstly, Tadada. Tadada should stay dead. The big twist at the end wasn't necessary. He should be the chairman that dies to spur Kiryu on. However, he never planned to kill Kiryu or the Tojo. In this version, to continue the theme of revenge and contrast to Kurahashi and Koda, Terada will have forgiven the Tojo and made something of himself rather than losing himself for revenge. Terada will also be key to another issue I had with the Jingweon. how absolutely black they are. There's no gray area, no morals, no ethics. They are evil. By having some members become more than just a simple villain, by having them have some morals and ethics, like Murai, then the faction will be just as strong a staple of the Yakuza series as the Tojo clan or the Omi Alliance. Next, Kurohashi. Kurohashi will be the main antagonist next to Ryuji Goda and be the leader of the Jingweon, as he was in the main game. He will be consumed by revenge, and that will be his focus, much like what he was in the game, but to an even higher degree. He will be the main focus for the revenge theme and contrast Terada heavily, as Kurohashi never focused on anything else. His life will have been ruined to show the extremes obsession can cause, and we will see tensions between him and other members of the Jingweon, maybe even killing a member who questions why they're doing this. This will lead him to dying by his own bomb for his revenge, symbolically being consumed and brought to his downfall by his need for revenge, as the rest of the Jingweon leave him to his fate, showing the Jingweon aren't so black and white as we're led to believe. The Man in Black always felt weird to me because of just how many times we face him, how unique he is as an enemy, and yet he has no lines of dialogue and no story relevance. Here, he will be another survivor and an enforcer of Kurohashi. However, he does not care about revenge against the Tojo, rather he cares about loyalty to the Jingweon, a way to compare the Jingweon to Kiryu and his loyalty to the Tojo clan. As we discussed, he will leave Kurohashi to die, as Kurohashi will lead the Jingweon to ruin, and to save the faction, the Man in Black will make peace with the Tojo, specifically with Daigo Dojima. I want him to act as that midpoint between revenge and forgiveness that will be recurring throughout the game, to show that these extreme traditionalist or extreme ambitious views don't work and that there is a better path. Why I want him to make peace with Daigo specifically is to give Daigo agency, as he will be the one to decide to stop the bloodshed, proving Daigo would be a good leader, as in this version, the Jingweon would be hunting him down and his mother, for Sohei Dojima ordering the massacre. By allowing Daigo to make peace with the Man in Black, it shows both factions giving up on revenge and giving into forgiveness, enforcing that theme of revenge versus forgiveness, and showing that Daigo is fit to lead. So that's the Jingweon. They are now a morally grey faction with a lot more depth and intrigue. They have more politics within between the leaders now, and have more interesting interactions between themselves and the Tojo. I believe these changes will help bring the Jingweon from a bland, evil faction with no real depth to an interesting, layered faction, just like the Omi and Tojo. Speaking of lacking in depth, Sengoku. Sengoku will be a lot less idiotic and a lot more manipulative. I think he was fine, but too snarky and just kind of an ass with nothing behind him but money. When you're that rich, you have to have been smart to get there, so it doesn't make sense for Sengoku to be just the rich guy. With this, I think Sengoku is perfect to be the one to work with the Jingweon, not Ryuji. Sengoku will mirror Shindo, the new one, and try to help lead Ryuji to surpass Jin. I think Sengoku would work better as a guy who knows how to work his money and to use people, rather than just spending his money for the sake of it. It would work better if he tried to help Ryuji with the coup rather than contest him for the chairmanship. Allow Sengoku to support Ryuji with his resources while he bides his time. Ryuji will still kill Sengoku, as Sengoku will commit dishonorable acts like raiding Terada's funeral, kidnapping Haruka, and even threatening to kill her. And so Ryuji chooses to act honorably over having the resources, something very akin to Kiryu, further mirroring the both of them. Well, Kiryu wouldn't kill him because Kiryu doesn't kill, obviously, as we have seen. Takashima was wasted potential. He seemed like a smart person playing the long game and helping Kiryu by shooting that bullet at Sayama to make them, and I quote, not trust anyone, unquote, to warn them of something. This is what I want to continue with. Takashima will be a double agent. Yes, audience, he will actually be working for Jin Goda. Takashima's betrayal felt kind of pointless, like a one-up of a one-up. Here, the reveal will feel impactful in a different way. While the antagonist has a twist, so too do the protagonist. Furthermore, the theme of revenge? Well, Terada was a sworn brother, and we will learn from Takashima that he deals with revenge in a cold, but not cruel way. He forgives the Jinweon who try and make peace, but kill those who kill Terada. He will teach the idea that revenge is not wholly bad, but can't be obsessed over. Takashima will also act as the voice of reason for Ryuji, while Sengoku tells Ryuji to follow his selfish tendencies. Takashima will foil both Terada and Kurohashi in this sense, both being sort of related to him. So, the Omi now has one less villain, rather another ally for the Tojo, and this works better as now there is more room for the Jinweon antagonist and Omi antagonist to breathe. Oh, Ryuji is going to be saved for the last change because he's kind of the biggest and it's best to talk about him alongside Kiryu. So, the Tojo clan. Let's start with the waste potential first. Shindo and Daigo. Like we said, revenge is integral to everything in the story, and so we have no reason for Daigo. He wants payback against Gota, but kind of forgets it halfway through, and loses purpose and agency within the narrative, until he takes over the Tojo clan. Not because of anything he did or that happened to him, rather because he was just kind of there. Well, now he will be very important. One thing that felt weird, as said before, was that Daigo had little to no opinion or interaction with the Jinweon, even though his own father ordered their execution. So why would the Jinweon leave out the family of the orchestrator if they were obsessed with revenge? Here, they don't. Kiryu doesn't get Daigo because he needs him. Kiryu gets Daigo because the Jinweon already made an attempt on his mother. Kiryu now needs to keep Daigo close to protect him from the Jinweon. Eventually, Daigo will be spurred to lead the Tojo against the Omi and the Jinweon, to become their figurehead when Yayoi Dojima is murdered by the Jinweon. Now he has total stakes in it. He will seek revenge, but learn that it won't do him any good. After learning what his father did and what has happened to Kurohashi, he will forgive them. He will make amends with the Man in Black and become a good leader by giving up his personal vendetta for the good of the clan. Perhaps even he will become sworn brothers with the Man in Black, mirroring Terada and Takashima. Next, Shindo. Shindo was a failure in the main game. You probably get an idea of what I'm going for after what I said about Sengoku. Shindo will work closely with the Tojo clan and try to lead them to war with the Omi. He will act as a foil for Sengoku, but for the Tojo. He will kill many Tojo officers to try and consolidate power. He knows the Tojo is fractured and that they need a figurehead to lead a united front. His actions will work, but Daigo will kill him for what he did. I'd even like it more if Shindo was friends with Daigo prior to this event, making that betrayal hurt Daigo even more, and making Shindo's death even more impactful to spur Daigo on. I do want Daigo to acknowledge that Shindo was, technically, right about needing to unify the Tojo, but he also needs to see how he went too far to do it. Always keep this idea of extremes in mind. This will teach Daigo how important it is to act with morals as a leader, and to not be cruel with his actions. Shindo's death will act as the spark to ignite Daigo as leader of the Tojo clan. While this may not link to the theme of revenge, it does link to the theme of ambition, making Shindo foil the actions of Ryuji. Shindo is a surrogate for Sengoku, and so the two of them show how far Ryuji could have fallen if he did not make the choice to become more than just his ambition, which you'll see in a bit. Now, Kawada, I think, had a pretty good story. His death was a clear consequence of his life seeking out the Jinweon. I only think he needs a few tweaks. Firstly, he thinks he did the right thing by leaving Sayama to protect her, but he wasn't asked to. That's the important part. After Suyeon dies, he should make the choice to leave Sayama with Mama to go after the Jinweon himself. He thinks he's doing what's right, but by seeking revenge, there's that theme again, he loses all contact with his daughter. He lost the chance to be a father by seeking out revenge, and so he dies for it. However, as he's dying, he will repent his actions and ask Sayama not to follow in his footsteps in seeking revenge. There's the pattern again. Therefore, we get a rhythm between the father and the daughter characters and how their plots go, and the daughter will learn from her mistakes. Sayama is going to be very important, as she is going to be the biggest foil during the climax to Ryuji and Kiryu. Sayama's plot will continue as usual. However, I think it's best to leave the romance out between her and Kiryu, as it doesn't really add anything. They could just become very close friends, like Kiryu and Date, so they can still care about each other. Almost more like siblings, to contrast Sayama and Gota's relationship. That way, Goda's realization about Sayama being his sister also compares to Kiryu's relationship with Sayama. So, Sayama stays relatively the same up until Kawada dies, and she realizes he was her father. Kurohashi will have escaped, so she has a goal to follow. Her character arc will be letting go of her past and her need for revenge, so she can move on with her life. She will not kill Kurohashi, but she will try and save Goda. A line from Star Wars The Last Jedi fits here, even though I dislike that movie, about not destroying what you hate, but saving what you love. Sayama should be forced to choose between saving her brother or getting revenge for her father, either staying in the past and getting revenge for what has happened, or saving what is in front of her in the here and now. This will help show Goda that what he has done was wrong, and give him that shift in character ideology he needs to survive the events of the climax. Now, Majima. Majima had no real role within the story other than being the backup. Majima is a pillar of Yakuza. Everyone loves Majima, so if he respects someone, then we as an audience will feel like we should respect them too. This is why I think Majima's role should be focused on giving Daido authority. Majima will disagree, even dislike Daido, but will learn to appreciate and respect him following Daido's acting as a leader, and Majima will support Daido's eventual takeover of the Tojo. It's important to have Majima as a supporting character to Daido, to give him the authority over the Tojo, other than just his familial name. The best narrative shifts the perspectives and ideals of their characters. Kiwami 2 was very close in doing this. For example, Ryuji feels like he's on the cusp of an integral, ideological change with the failing of his invasion and the introduction of his sister. His ideals of surpassing Jin Goda and defeating Kiryu to become the one true dragon were nearly shattered when he found out he had a sister, that he wasn't alone, when he realized his mother didn't abandon him. On the other hand, Kiryu very rarely changes at all through the series, and this could have been a perfect opportunity to shift him as well. Rather than Kiryu being a passive protagonist and only really acting when he is forced to do so, he should take up responsibility of the Tojo. Parallel Shintaro Kazuma and become a legendary Yakuza that can help guide the future generations of Yakuza to a better path. He can be the change he wants to see within the Tojo. So, Kiryu Kazuma doesn't change. He is a strong character, but never truly learns anything that changes his views. I think it's best to have his arc be completed in taking up responsibility with the Tojo. Kiryu left the Tojo to the hands of others. He left being chairman to someone unprepared, and he should regret this and learn from it. We learned from Majima after their fight that Terada wasn't a good leader, and Kiryu should change from this. Kiryu can't sit idle anymore while the Tojo struggles with infighting. With the plot changes I have in mind, we will cause the change to be that Kiryu sees there is a better way than allowing the Tojo to ruin itself, by forcing it to become something wholly different, to advance it, or by allowing Yayoi and Kashiwagi to let it stagnate in old traditions that lead it to become so unstable. Kiryu should become the clan captain, to show he has learned his mistake with Terada, that he won't allow his mistakes to harm the Tojo again. This is an obvious parallel with Kazuma and should be a perfect fit. Kiryu inspires people, but he isn't a leader. Being there to support Daido is a good fit for his character moving on. And finally, Ryuji Goda. Goda will learn that while he wanted his own glory as a Yakuza to surpass Jin Goda, that he put the Omi at risk for it, that his own personal goals should come second to protecting the Omi. He needs to learn that he helped lead the Omi too far away from what it once was, and let it become corrupt by people like Sengoku. Ryuji should have more scenes with Jin Goda, and they argue over their ideology, but there will always be a hint of doubt in Ryuji, that he wasn't sure that what he was doing was right, which gets further pushed and torn by Sengoku and Takashima. When he learns that he does have a family in Sayama, that he isn't alone and has something to protect, both her and the Omi, and loses his father figure, Goda will realize his mistakes and defeat Kurohashi in a bid to save Sayama, and enrage over Jin. Goda will survive the final battle and call off the invasion, which should be happening as Kiryu fights Goda. Keep the war a battle of ideology, rather than 3 pit stops. And then Goda realizes the error of his ways. Goda says he hates being called the Dragon of Kansai because a dragon should not be owned by anyone or stuck to one place. But by learning his obligation to the Omi, by learning that he has something more to fight for than himself, he does become the true dragon, the Dragon of Kansai, the legendary Yakuza known by the Omi Alliance as the man who saved the Omi Alliance, making him an exact parallel to Kiryu and fitting perfectly into the series as another dragon. Perhaps Goto goes to become a sworn brother to Kiryu, to prevent war from ever happening again between the Tojo and Omi. Maybe he doesn't become chairman, but captains Takashima. But Goto will return to the Omi in triumph after realizing who he is. I would also have his tattoo be burnt from the explosion that kills Furuhashi, or partially damaged to signify this change in character physically. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is a roller coaster of peaks, peak highs and peak lows for the series. Ryuji Goda is amazing and carries the game and should have been the focus. The Jinweon are a great antagonistic faction, but don't feel any more threatening than any other faction. Just feel like they complicate matters when truly this game just needed to have Occam's razor to simplify. This video went much longer than I thought. I thought it was only going to be like a 20-minute analysis, but it seems like this is going to be an hour long-ish. So thank you to anyone who has decided to stick through this whole thing. I really hoped you enjoyed it and maybe learned something. If you liked the changes I made, please let me know. If you don't, tell me why. I'd love to have discussions on what people think would be a better change, or whether they think this is correct or not. If you really want to support me, please subscribe. Every subscriber would be very helpful, and I'd appreciate everyone who'd want to see my content. If you liked the video, like below, share it with anyone you think would have a nice time watching this. Tell me if you didn't, so what I could improve. If you're feeling extremely generous, head on over to my Patreon, where you're able to vote for and give a say in what games I'm going to cover, and what exactly I'm going to do. Get kind of early hints on the content that I'm going to be making, as well as some insights into the process of how I kind of approach this stuff. I might start live streaming content that I'm recording. Say, I might start live streaming the Yakuza series when I'm recording it, so if I do, I'll leave a link below. Social medias will be below. Follow me on Twitter, and I think that's all I have for social medias. And remember, Oni, hindsight's 2020.